Hey group, it's Pitt, and I'm back with some more MBTI. Today we're going to be looking inside the mind of Mr. Adam Carolla from his appearance on the Orny Adams podcast. I'm not overly familiar with either one of these, but Adam seems like an interesting fellow, so I wanted to get a little bit better look inside of his mind. Before we do, though, we're going to talk about the typing system, because you've not seen MBTI done quite the way that I do it. I have changed some of the definitions and the way that things are placed to make it more logically consistent and a little bit more objective rather than subjective. We look for these 5 questions to help us determine these types. And so, first off, we're looking for things or ideas. Are you grounded in the actual things that you can actually put your hands on from here into the past, the sensory experiences, or are you looking for the intuitive side of things? Are you looking at the ideas and the concepts behind it from now into the future? When you have those, are you gathering new ones or sorting through old ones? Is it about, hey, look at all of these, or is it about, hey, look at this one particular one? Do you do that for yourself or for the tribe? Self does not mean selfish. It means that you use it first and then you give it to the tribe. Tribe means that you give it to the tribe and then you get your enjoyment from it. Are you rigid or flexible? Is it your way or the highway? Or do you see your way around other people's points of views to try and incorporate them into whatever is going on? And are you direct or informative? Do you give all of the information and stop? Or do you give all of the information 2 or 3 times and chase off down a couple of rabbit holes? All of these things come together for us to find signs of how we might improve ourselves. The point of this is to help us find examples in other people through their mannerisms, their way of speaking, the way that they receive and give back information that we can identify with so that we can find things that are a little bit weak in our own self and we can build them up. This is not a medical diagnosis. I am not a doctor. I have no intention whatsoever of being one. And so this is a self-help program to help you figure out how you want to change you. Let's dig in and get some examples. Let's go.
No, you have kids, right? And
Yes.
they're young. They're under 20.
Yes.
Do they have work ethic?
No.
Why is that? What's going on? Not with your kids, but in general.
Well, there's a couple things going on with this generation, as we would say. Not interested in getting their driver's license, which
Idea.
is unthinkable to
Yeah.
every old person I talk to.
How do they get around?
Their
We're into a rabbit hole.
parents, Uber, friends or whatever. Just
Yeah.
a general
That's parents, Ubers, a friend are 3 examples in support of an idea.
lack of interest in getting a driver's license.
Okay.
It's insane. As far as the work ethic goes, I mean, I have this argument/discussion with everyone all the time, which is I'm like, I want my son
Argument/discussion is holding open rather than closing, right?
to work at McDonald's.
I don't know. That could be sorting.
And they go,
Right.
"What? Your son shouldn't be working. What's he need to work?" And I'm like, he
Yeah.
needs to learn how to work. That's
Right.
why he doesn't need to learn.
That's an idea of focus, right? He needs to learn how to work would be a singular idea as opposed to many ideas.
Learn how to sear frozen patties
Right.
for a skill, or shoot secret sauce out of a caulking gun. That's not a skill. He just needs to learn. First off, he needs to learn what he doesn't want to do,
Right.
which is stand behind a grill. So
Eliminate some experiences.
there's something.
But why don't they understand what I think you and I understand?
Okay, so that was so indirect that he wasn't even able to finish out the thought, right?
There is nothing more gratifying than working a full day, getting a check, and then using
This guy looks like Ben Davidson.
that check to buy something. Why don't they see that? Why don't they understand that it would make their souls feel better? That's what I'm having trouble understanding.
We are having difficulty as a nation in doing things that are satisfying versus doing things that sort of feel good.
Right.
Like everyone's like, oh, I'll just get on that Ozempic and then I won't have to diet and exercise and stuff, or whatever drug they're going on. And I go, you don't get it. Diet and exercise is good for your head. You know what I
Right.
mean? And they go,
Yeah.
well, why should I go sweat when I can just take
Yeah.
a pill? And I keep telling them, you don't understand where this is leading.
Okay, so that is about sorting the idea, right? It is better to do exercise than it is to take this pill. That is sorting into a best idea, and he is using Ozempic as the example to support that.
Eating.
Yeah.
It seems to also be very tribe-centric as opposed to personal-centric, right? He is giving his examples by casting back to the tribe, by using the tribe as the example as opposed to his personal thoughts in the matter. So that is more of a tribe focus than a self focus. So as of right now, we're looking at ideas and we're looking at old, because it seems to be sorting into, and it seems to be tribe. Rigid and flexible are still a little bit up in the air, and he seems to be somewhat informative. We're going to look for more confirmation of that before we commit to it, but it seems to be where we're going.
For you, the diet and exercise is a discipline. It's something that needs to be a part of your life. It's
Right.
important to you thriving.
Right.
Successful people engage in it, and they're like, I'm taking the pill. They don't get how that works.
Okay, so again, let's back it up just real quick.
And they're like,
The concept here is exercise is the idea, right? This is the best idea. Diet and exercise is healthy and good for you mentally, right? And then he brings in some examples. They're not fully complete, but they're there, and it's a few of them in support of that idea.
I'm taking the pill. They don't get how that works.
We're very similar because I've always hated shortcuts. Like when I was a kid, I loved collecting baseball cards, and I would buy 7 packs, 15 cents. It was $1.05. I had a paper route. I'd take my money. I'd buy the base, and
He's more at me as opposed to Adam's tribe, right? Adam gives his examples. It's the tribe. Ori is given his examples, and it is me, I, right? So this is self versus tribe, fairly well explained right here.
I gotta get Jim Rice. I gotta get this person, and then in my high
I've got to get this best thing, right? So he's leaning more towards the things as opposed to ideas.
school, all of a sudden they would sell the entire package. You could buy every baseball card that year without having to collect it or do the work. And the rich kids bought the full pack of baseball cards, and I never understood it because part of the fun was unraveling or opening them up and
It's about the best experience for him. That's funny.
getting the shitty.
Like that they're pretty close to opposites in that, right? So he is about the best experience and he's about the best idea. So we're getting Ori about the best experience and he's self-focused, and we're getting Adam about the best idea and he's externally focused.
Gum. Did you ever collect baseball cards?
No.
Yeah. So I mean, there's this sort of like through the years I've seen people stopped caring about the process and growing from the process. Every single job I've had, I've learned something from. And there's, whether it was golf, I was a caddy, and you would, if somebody hit the grass goes flying up, you have to replace the divot.
Yeah.
You have to replace the
That's about the sensory.
problem you caused.
Right.
And you learn something. And this is lost, I think, on this generation.
He's using the ideas in support of his best experience, whereas Adam's using the many experiences in support of his best idea.
Agreed. And they have no idea what they're doing, sort of micro and macro.
Yeah.
When we go, these people need to be taken care of by the government because
See, we're back to the tribe. These people we need, whereas with Ori it was all I, me, I.
they don't have the chance to whatever. It's like you are screwing them up, idiots. You have
You were screwing them up is an idea.
no idea what you're doing to generations of people.
So how do you handle this as a parent? Is it just
Like that's the best idea, worst idea is an idea, right? It's putting all the ideas into one box instead of holding open many different ideas. He seems to be quite ideas focused, with the subset being the actual physical things. So it seems to be very idea. It seems to be pretty well sort and not many.
just painful? Is it frustrating?
I'm looking now for more of the rigid flexible. We're trying to figure out if he's going to be control or movement.
Is it
And he's not overly informative, right? I was leaning that way, but it doesn't appear to be, right? He is stopping his sentences. He's not having to be interrupted. Now, he didn't finish earlier, but that could be a whole different thing.
I'm sort of philosophical about it, which
Yeah.
is like, this is the new world order.
Yeah.
I'll
There's the box. It's the same box I have. It's the same box Kanye had. It's a they box.
Try to, implement some wisdom when I can. And basically, what I do with my kids is I just go, I'm doing this by example. I say to them, like, I am going to work today. Or, can we go to the whatever? My daughter just said, like, I want to fly first class to Miami. I said, I don't fly first class when I'm working.
Yeah.
Half truth. Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. But the point is I just told her, I don't fly first class. I'm going to work. She'll go like, like, can you, take me to whatever?
That's using his experiences for the tribe's idea, right? In order for the tribe to be the best idea, then they need this experience of mine as an example. So that again is bringing in the examples in support of the idea. That's where I'm thinking.
On Thursday, and I go, no.
And it's rather flexible, right? He's got his idea. He could be very well, no, you can't fly first class. But instead, he says, I'm going to show this example so that it is flexible around you. That's what that is. And he just gave us 2 or 3 examples of being flexible in the moment. So it's a pretty good estimation that he's going to be flexible and not my way or the highway. But we'll see. We'll give it a few more minutes.
No, I have to work so I can provide for you guys. So
and
I'm not going to be here.
Have they shown any interest in your work or what you do? Do they go to your studio? Do they observe you?
My daughter, not so much. My son has some interest in maybe talking. He's sort of emphasis on sports. He likes sports and stats and data and that kind of stuff. And
them SIs, baby.
He has a sense of humor and has comedians he likes. Not me, but other folks. And there's some passing interest in
Again, this is some flexibility. This is some tribe focus. It seems to be using, again, these experiences, like a couple of experiences, not a single one, to support the best idea, right? Or the worst idea, or whatever it happens to be. Like the one idea.
Communicating for a living.
Okay. This is something that drives me nuts, and I bet it drives you nuts too. When I go out to eat, I look around the restaurant and I see everybody on their phones.
Yes.
Out to eat. Dates. First dates. Married people. And you look over and there's just 2 people on their phones.
Yes.
And the other night I went to a...
That's taken away from the best experience, huh? Boy, I bet that's trickery.
Mexican restaurant.
What are these people thinking?
And the table right next to... It was so distracting that it ruined our meal. Was a mother and a young child that was probably 5 or 6 years old. And the mother was on the phone the entire time. And the kid had nothing. And the kid's looking at us. Like, adopt me.
Right.
Like, save me.
Yes.
And the mother's not...
He seems to be much more controlled and flexible than Adam, too.
Look at, like, if you see me on my phone, I'm not on TikTok. I'm not looking at other people's content. I'm reading things to enrich my mind. Now, I'm not, like,
this is the experience that you should be having. I'm loving it.
Altruistic or that great, but I just don't... I wouldn't sit there with somebody else. Like, when I look at dates, I've seen...
He's more informative, too, right? He's giving examples. He's not stopping.
Dates where, like, one of them is on a dating app. and this is what I've come to realize. Like with this mother yesterday, this is the new latchkey kid.
Oh yeah, I was talking about this on my podcast that you're growing up with a kind of an absentee parent.
Yeah,
There's the idea.
Who's physically...
You're growing up with a kind of an absentee parent, again, kicking the focus back on the tribe, and it is a singular idea, right? It is a thing. There is an absentee parent, but that's the idea of, not the specific example of.
There, but mentally not there. So, couple things. So I've said this to people. I was just talking about this. Like, if you and I went out to dinner and we just sat down and you started pontificating and I just pulled out a book,
right?
Just put it in front of my face and started, or the sports page, and just fluffed it up in front of me and just started reading the box scores and stuff, you'd be pissed off, insulted, and rightfully so.
That's the list of experiences.
Yes.
What is the difference between hard
And that's flexibility, right? I'm taking into consideration how you would react to this situation.
copy, hardbound copy of Moby Dick and me staring at my phone?
Yeah, you got to do that. The next time somebody pulls out their phone, just pull out Moby
okay.
Dick.
It's insulting.
It is insulting.
And,
I thought his name was Adam, not Moby.
okay, there's a couple things. People think they can multitask, especially women. Women think I can read about what's going on with Cardi B and her ass and listen to your story.
Right.
No, you can't. But people do have an insane ability to parrot back the last 5 words somebody said.
Interesting. It's exactly 5?
Yeah.
I love it.
Well,
I love it because I think you're right.
It's
probably.
a syllable count, really.
Okay.
Ands and does and
All
ifs,
right.
might be 7 words. But what
Okay.
I'm saying is, I've said
It's more about the idea than the actual physical representation. I'm going to go ahead and we're going to do the typology, and then we'll look for some confirmations on the other side of it. We're going to look at what we think this is, and this is the chart that we use, right? Things are ideas. He seems to be ideas. That's going to put us on the right hand of the screen in the 2 columns to the far right. New and old. He seems to be about sorting through the best, which is going to be the old, right? You're not gathering all of these ideas. He's not bringing all of these ideas to the table. It's a bunch of individual best ideas. This is the best path forward. That seems to be where he's going with this. So we're going to go with old. That's going to put us all the way to the far right. Self versus tribe. He seems to be tribe focused. That's going to give us the 2 bottom columns. Rigid versus flexible seems to be flexible. So that is going to give us an ENFP. And give me 1 second and I will find the correct graphic and we will transition that over for this last part. The first 2 slots deal with how you receive information. That's how it comes into you and you process it. The next 2 slots are how you give it back, right? So if you are holding the information to yourself, the 3rd slot is going to be introverted. But if you're giving away the information, the 3rd slot is going to be extroverted. He seems to be more on the direct side than the informative side. He is giving the whole answer. He is even using examples, but he is not continuing on and rambling and chasing rabbit holes. It is a full example and a stop most of the time. And so that's going to lead towards direct. That means he's holding it in. That means the 3rd slot is going to be introverted as opposed to extroverted. So that's going to put him on the alternate side. What does the alternate do? You are going to notice that should be ENFJ. I did it again. Let me swap that around. Okay. So we're still going to be on the right side. He is still introverted, but it changes the stack, right? This should be an ENFJ because he is sorting through to the best. He is going to understand without even really thinking about it what everybody feels. He's going to understand the ethics of the situation according to the tribe. Now, the tribe that he bases his ethics on is not everyone. Nobody's tribe, generally speaking, is everyone. It is who you have accepted to be your people, your family, your co-workers, things of that nature. So whatever they have collectively decided is the correct thing is where the ethics will be based. Now, that can be the whole country. That can be your state. It can be exclusively your friend group. But he's going to understand that and absorb how everything is going to affect that like it's nothing without even really thinking about it. He's going to understand this is going to make these people uncomfortable, whether or not he cares. He's going to understand what the feelings in the situation are going to be and what the ethics should be according to his tribe. He's going to use and feel responsible for the best possibility. It's going to be sorting through to the best idea so that we have the best idea going forward. It is using the ethics to determine the best path. He's going to get defensive over his logic in the situation. The third eye is where you see forward. It is where you see the path. And so because you see the path, you get defensive over it. Whether or not you're correct about that vision, you see it. And so you're going to get defensive over your logic in this slot, your personal thoughts. The throat is what you miscommunicate and misunderstand, right? This is in the middle of the stack. It doesn't get a whole lot of information. You get a lot of good information at the top, a lot of bad information in the middle, and not a whole lot of information at all, or bad information at the bottom, and not a whole lot of information at all in the middle. And so the throat is going to be where you miscommunicate and misunderstand, and for him that is going to be the actual things. He gives plenty of examples, but none of them are complete examples. None of them are necessarily always the correct example for the situation, but he's got a lot of them to pull out. He gathers them. He just doesn't necessarily check them. The heart is what you really want to do. It is where you will feel most fulfilled in your life if you can get your stack in order and do it correctly. For him, that is going to be standing in the morals and having his own feelings in order, understanding how he feels about the situation as opposed to other people, and actually doing the right thing. Now, he uses the tribe's ethics to determine his morals, and so he's going to have to make sure that the tribe is the correct tribe and that the morals are where he actually wants to be. But if he is standing in his morals, he's going to be all right. The way to do that is to feed that. You feed that through your solar plexus. The solar plexus feeds into the heart and enables you to do what you want to do. For him, that is going to be seeing all of the ideas. He has the best idea. He can sort through to the best idea. But in order to find the best idea, you have to have a variety to choose from. People who have a high NI tend to overlook ideas. It is low in the stack to have the new ideas. NE is the new ideas. And so it is a little bit harder for people with this lower in the stack to actually see that there are new ideas, and some of them can be valid. You've already made your determination. You have to learn to hold open for new ideas. The sacral is the sexual trickster energy. It is where you get tripped up. It is where you intentionally choose the wrong thing. Nobody ever says, hey, I want to do the wrong thing, but people do it all the time. And it is normally because of this stack, this part of the stack and the one lower. What he is going to misconstrue and choose the wrong thing on is other people's thoughts. He's going to have a tendency to align himself with the wrong thinkers, right? The people who operate on the lower end of the positive negative harmonic, right? The people that he listens to will tend to have the worst ideas. Now, the worst ideas does not necessarily mean killing people, although it can. It's probably got more to do with substance issues, more than likely. Right? You want to hang out with this crowd that you think is cool, but they're really not the cool crowd. They're really the opposite of that. Right? They're doing the wrong things. You don't understand their feelings. Or their thoughts. You've got their feelings on lock. They seem very good. They're very good people, but they're doing dirty things. That's the typical for this slot. And that is because the SI, right? SI is choosing the best experience. It is what has happened, so it is remembering the experiences. It is organization and making sure that the tasks are completed in the proper manner as opposed to just getting completed. Making sure that the details are correct, making sure that the supporting evidence is there. All of these things are SI. It is about the best experience. You have a tendency here to misremember the experiences. So what that means is that possibly it wasn't as bad as you remember. Possibly it wasn't as good as you remember. But you remember it that way and you hold on with a deadlock. A lot of people tend to get trapped into those experiences and try to find a different experience to make them feel better. And so they fall into substance abuse problems. If you have a low SI in the stack, you are fairly likely to do that. And so you need to work on your organization. You need to work on making sure that you understand what has actually happened in fact, not in supposition, not because you think people are feeling that way or you think that you understand their thoughts, but what has actually happened in fact. All of these things are how we identify why we make the bad choices, why we choose the wrong paths. And I go into much more detail for the ENFJ in the ENFJ video. Oh, it is dedicated for helping you to understand how to integrate this into yourself. I use the Infinite Integration System to do that. There's a whole playlist on that. It includes prayer, fasting, meditation, spending time in each one of these things and incorporating them into yourself so that you can be the you that you really want to be, the best you that you can possibly be. It is a framework for self-improvement. Now we're going to look for some confirmations. We're going to be going back and looking specifically for the stack. He is an ENFJ alternate, so we're going to be looking to see if he is dealing with people's feelings without even really thinking about it. Whether he is feeling responsible for choosing the best path forward. Whether he is getting defensive over his logic in that. Whether he is bringing the facts, but not all of them, and not the complete ones, but a multitude of them. We're also going to be looking at the bottom of the stack to see if there's some organization problems, if there's some getting the details wrong problems. Like, it's hard to say he remembered this incorrectly, right? But we can look to see if the details are missing or something of that nature, or if you're trapped in the experience. And then finally, we're going to be looking to see if he is just missing what the actual rationale is, what other people are thinking. So, all of that being said, let's dive back in and look for our confirmations.
To people, if you got into a horrific motorcycle accident and were just strewn out on the highway and, you know, concussed and bleeding from your ear, and the paramedic leaned over you, you would be able to parrot back his last 5 words.
Interesting.
You would.
Yeah.
We have this ability. And so what people, the way they get out of trouble is they're staring at their phone, and then you go, hey, I need you to listen to me. And they go, yeah, Starbucks, 2 lines, better world. Yeah, right. I got it. Yeah. I heard you. But we're able to, it's like we have a playback tape that's good for 12 seconds in our head that we can always. So they always think they defeat you by parroting back the last 5 words you said that they didn't listen to or react to, but it's up on the drive.
That's dealing with someone's thoughts and not necessarily understanding them, but...
Right. Which is...
And that was a little bit of getting defensive over his logic in the situation.
What I wanted to talk...
Not a whole lot, but a little bit.
...about today, because we were having this discussion yesterday privately about listening skills. And this is something that you believe you have to train like a muscle.
Absolutely.
And I was shocked to learn that you had done the groundlings. At what point in your career did you do the groundlings?
At the very beginning. I mean, it wasn't in my career. I didn't have a career. I just showed up and took groundlings classes.
That to me is so surprising, because to me you seem like a guy that's just going to do it your way, and I don't need the structure. Nobody can teach me. Am I incorrect with that thinking?
Well, you're
yes,
correct and incorrect. When I started,
here's his logic,
exploring comedy, I was like 21, 22, and I was like, you know, you got a dead-end construction job and you drive a beater pickup truck, and you know, you're not really material. You're not going to be a lawyer. You're not going to be a doctor. You can't work in an office.
That's all about the experience, and it's a negative end experience.
You can't spell. You can barely read. You know what I mean? You've got barely a high school education. You know what? There is no white collar outlet.
You didn't go to...
So that is this is my logic in the situation, right? But he's not really being defensive over it. He's merely laying it out. But it is very much rooted in the negative experience, pushing him into the different experience.
College.
For you, no. So I didn't have any. I was a horrible student. I had no white collar avenue. And I also sort of went like, I don't think you're gonna make it in this sort of professional world. You're not gonna be able to put a suit on and show up to an office every day and navigate that. It's just never gonna.
Were your
work.
parents professional in that sense?
my family was kind of limited and weird with their work. My mom was just welfare and food stamps. My dad was like kind of a part-time teacher, was like substitute school teacher at some point, and then got a job working in an orphanage as a like teacher, director of education, a place called 5 Acres in Altadena. It's an orphanage, essentially. So nobody made any money, and nobody was... People did...
That was several examples, right? Now, it wasn't like best, worst examples. It was just examples of
college later on in life, like in their 40s and 50s, and it was a weird mishmash of sort of intellectual white trash. You know, they were sort of intellectual, but they also lived in kind of squalor and didn't have things, and everyone's car was a beater. And
would they read the paper and discuss current events? Was that part of the culture?
They didn't discuss. My family wasn't conversational. We didn't talk. I didn't talk to
We didn't deal with thoughts.
my parents. My dad's idea of a fun Saturday would just sit on the sofa and read a book.
Okay.
And my idea of a fun Saturday would be outside wrestling with some kid on the lawn. And he didn't care for, sports or cars or building or tools and wrestling. And, I wanted to just go find a roof and jump off it into a swimming pool. That was my idea. And his idea was hang out and read a book.
Okay.
So we didn't really, we didn't share a lot of interests, and my family wasn't very magnanimous. It wasn't like, well, I don't like football, but the boy likes football, so I'm going to go support him. It was like, good, he likes football. That takes place outside of this house, so go do it.
Okay.
And see if the coach will pick you up before the game and drop you off.
Okay.
And so I didn't really interact with my family.
Huh.
That's interesting, right? Now, there wasn't a whole lot of confirmation in that other than the typing, right? Like, we're still dealing with ideas. We're still dealing with flexibility. We're still dealing with all of the things that lead into it, but it's hard to find ethics. Now, he absorbed his dad's ethics in this example, right? My dad thinks that this is the right thing. That's not necessarily his tribe. He doesn't feel connected to that. And so he understands the ethics, but he doesn't necessarily agree with them. So he went a different route. That is the tribe part of that. That is understanding the FE. So it is an example, but it's hard to explain example, right? The best possibility, again, this was talking about past experiences that have happened. They were not necessarily best worst, but the spread out of, right? This is what my dad thought. Now, we're still looking. So
interesting. And yet you still found this drive to get out there and do these things. And I guess I'm sort of stuck on the fact that you come from a family that doesn't communicate, but this is what you do for a living. Like, I find it fascinating, and I should have said this early on. I'm in awe of your talent as a broadcaster. I really am, and I wouldn't say that. But listening to you when you covered for Howard Stern when he went off the air, and listening to you on different shows, you're just so good at it. And that was the impetus for this discussion that we had yesterday about your listening skills, because in order to be an incredible interviewer, you have to be able to listen.
That's got a lot to do with the FE right there, right? The being able to listen to other people is a lot to do with the other people's feelings.
Take it in and respond. And that goes back to your groundlings, where they taught you how to do that, and it was something that you work on as with a muscle, as like a muscle. And I said to you yesterday, I said, "How are my listening skills?" And you're like, "Oh, okay, good, better than average or whatever." And I was actually shocked. I thought I was going to come in B plus A minus.
I had you at a C plus B.
There's no way. First of all, C plus B minus. But there's there's no
See,
way.
I told you that was a bad
I don't mean to correct you.
Get the details correct, right?
Be unschooled.
Yeah.
But Now it's not that you
And that was a missing the detail, right? And missing the other people's thoughts.
didn't go to college. You're unschooled.
Oh, unschooled.
You're unschooled. I
Yeah.
just decided. Yeah, I think that I think I have really good listening skills. What can I do to work on my listening skills?
Well,
Okay, so this is going to be using the best idea to correct the tribe ethics, right? So this should be a fairly good example of confirmation.
interviewing is really listening. And the problem with comedians in the interviewing process is they're trying to load jokes
That's the idea.
instead of listening.
Right.
It's really hard to be in the process of loading a joke in your head and fully listening to what the person is saying.
Right.
Much like reading the story about Cardi B and listening to me complain about
Right.
Starbucks.
Right.
You can hear bits and pieces of me in my Starbucks conversation, but you don't get the full 100%.
But doesn't your mind do
ingestion of
that
it.
too? Because we talked about this yesterday. When I do your podcast, we go off in all these different tangents where you'll say something and I'll think, like, this is why I get exhausted doing this. I'm thinking, don't interrupt Adam now. Bring that up later if it comes up. He's on a roll. Don't break his rhythm. But try and come back to that thought, that avenue, that tangent. And that's when I get exhausted. But I feel like I'm good at listening,
Oh,
like I'm taking in most of this.
You're better than most, is what I would say. But what I would also say is it's people think it's just a thing, like height or the color of your eyes. It isn't. It's
This is some defense of the logic behind, right?
just a tangible skill, a muscle that needs to be exercised. I was no good at it when I started.
Okay.
I don't feel like I became a good interviewer until like year 15 of broadcasting.
And when did you start?
I started broadcasting regularly on Loveline when I was 32 or something
Detail aversion.
like that. And I don't think I became a good interviewer until I was like in my mid 40s.
And were you doing your podcast at that point?
No, I was just doing terrestrial radio.
Which your skills so good. You're so interesting. You can go off on any topic. I mean, it's enjoyable. It really is. But like, help me to understand so I can become better.
Well,
so when you're talking, you're telling the story about how you come from a family that doesn't really communicate. And in my head, I think, well, that's weird. Like, I want to say, well, that's weird because that's how you make a living is communicating, and you're so good at it. But I don't.
He's going to be an SITE, right? And so he is very much concerned about getting the precise details of what everyone thinks.
Do it. I stop myself, but I'm slightly derailed.
He's got much more confirmation than here because it's hard to confirm the FENI, right? It really is, unless you've got Kanye going off. Like,
From your words in the story you're telling. What am I supposed to do?
I mean, it's not really an intellectual process.
it's more about the feelings.
You know, it's more just sort of reps. You will find, and I have found this personally with myself, less is always more in the interview department. If you go back and listen to your tapes of interviewing somebody, I would do it with myself. I would wince because I'd go, oh, I didn't even let the person finish their thought. I jumped in with a joke or something. You know what I mean? So I think there's an element of interviewing which is sort of, you have to be magnanimous, which is,
That is some good FE confirmation.
this is about them. It's not about
It's about how they feel specifically.
me and how funny I can be or interesting or witty, you know, I can be. The thing about interviewing is tons of reps and then make it about the other person and then go and then ask questions that are completely organic. I mean, the worst interviewers have the list of of
How dare you make a list?
this thing, and then they go, they're interviewing, this person, and then the person goes,
He's going to hide his list.
shortly after my son died, I thought about suicide, and then they go, oh, okay. And what was it like working with Harrison Ford?
Right.
That's about the feelings. I'm going to go ahead and wrap this one up because we're getting a little bit long. We got a little bit less of the confirmation that I really would have liked to have had, but I feel like there was enough confirmation that we can say that he is an ENFJ alternate. Again, if you identified with the way that he thinks and the way that he is giving examples of himself, then you might be an ENFJ. And that is the point of what we're doing here. We're trying to help you identify the traits that you identify with so that you can improve your life in the way that you want to improve your life. If you identify with Adam, chances are you have some organizational problems. Chances are you have a problem with getting stuck in the past experiences. You won't let go of that really bad thing that happened, or you won't let go of that one really good thing that happened. And you expect everything else ever to fall into that. That's where most people get trapped there. You can get trapped in the NI side of that, where it's all about this is the one experience, right? Everybody feels this way. And I can't do this because everybody will feel bad. Or I have to do this because everybody will feel good. All of this is part of you. You use the whole stack to different degrees of effectiveness. The point of the system is to teach you to get all of the effectiveness up so that you use all of the stack consistently in the beneficial manner for yourself. It's a way that is logically consistent for you so that you know without a doubt, yes, I am getting these experiences and I am sorting them into the right places. That's the point of what we do here. It is not a medical diagnosis of Adam. It is to help us identify things about ourselves so that we can fix ourselves. I believe that the infinite integration system is beneficial. It has helped me. I used it for me first. I'm an I. But other people have used it. Other people have gotten results from it. If you apply yourself to it, you will probably get results as well. If you identify with Adam, we have an ENFJ video. If you want to learn about the system, we have the infinite integration playlist. And if that's a little bit too woo-woo for you, if there's a little bit too much prayer, meditation, and fasting, we have just the MBTI parts that tries to keep it a little bit more scientific. Hopefully I brought a little bit of enlightenment and not too much confusion to a somewhat difficult topic. I have indeed changed the way that MBTI works. It is not the same system. It does not have the same types as the other one. To the crew, thanks for hanging out. I appreciate every single minute that you were here with me, and I am praying for you every single day. Until next time, I love you. God loves you. You are perfect, whole, and complete just the way that you are. And this has been Pitt State. Peace.